Never mess with a Sandhurst boy.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Today we're going to be doing another lore video, and this time you're going to get 2 for the price of 1. The comment here says, damn good content, bro. Keep up the awesome work. Can you do a story lore on my main Tekken 7 character, Katarina Olives? Very mysterious background. Fire emoji. Thank you for the nice words. What I've been doing in this video series, I know we got off track a few times, but whichever comment has the most likes is the character I will cover next. So let's keep that up again. Comment which character you want me to cover next. If you don't know what characters I've covered already, go to the Tekken lore playlist and there's a bunch of videos there. But the reason why I decided to do Katarina and Gigas together, because one, both of these characters are a pair, they're a duo, but also they both showed up in Tekken 7, and you have to wonder, will these characters make it into Tekken 8? Out of all the new characters, the brand new characters added into Tekken 7, I have to say, I feel like Katarina, Gigas, and Shahid is the 3 weakest. Lucky Chloe, even though her story is kind of jumbled, she serves a purpose. Claudio, I talk a lot about him. He has a purpose. I just feel like Gigas and Katarina, I really don't know what their purpose is. One thing that I want to talk about before we get to the actual lore, when you talk about Gigas, before I actually found out the story behind him, I always thought Gigas was Marduk. Marduk sort of got captured by the Mishima Zaibatsu and they did these experiments on him. Now that's not eventually what happened, but I think that story possibly could have been better. We'll have to read the details and see if it truly could have been better, but the way Gigas turned out, he just is a meme. So I have 2 tweets here from Harada talking about Gigas. Now Gigas, when it comes to balancing and how we want the character to be played, he's kind of a meme, right? He's super deadly online. Online, he's one of the best characters to pick. Basically, Gigas is not supposed to be a tournament character. We can't try and craft every character to like Steve Fox, right? Steve Fox is a perfect tournament character, but if you look at his win rate, he's one of the worst in the game. Gigas is the opposite. He's a very dominant online character, but then on the flip side, he's horrible in tournaments. You can't have the best of both, because when you do, you end up with Fakamrov, you end up with Lita, right? Now, talking about Katarina, the reason why I feel like Katarina is replaceable is because the main thing that stands out about her, the 2 things that come to mind when I think Katarina. One, the looks. Of course, they made this character very attractive, very cute, I'll say.
Guys, if I want to play this game, I only want to play a good character so I can practice a good character that's like meta or like high tier. Oh, Jesus Christ, that's hot.
Also, her gameplay is very simple. 444, 333, very simple, easy to understand and easy to, do.
But man, are you looking at these character choices? Moon plays Xiao Yu, Soda Poppin is a Law player, and 444 is a Katarina player.
Why are people whining about Katarina's 444? Just block. Just don't press any buttons on your fucking pad.
I mean, next thing you know, we're gonna get Dr. Disrespect's gonna be a Panda player, right?
Thank you.
The reason why I feel like that's replaceable, because they can make any character cute and they can make any character easy to use, right? That's something that I've talked about a lot on this channel. All of these games are trying to make easy to use, good looking characters. So she's very replaceable. Also, you have to consider that she's kind of a meme too, right? The 444, the 333, that is a real meme material. And I don't see that having any staying power, especially when you put that to the test against other characters, right? If you had to pick between Leo, Asuka, Xiao Yu, Alyssa, if you had to pick between some of the other female characters on the list, Katarina would not be able to take their spot, But let's get into the story. We're going to start off with Katarina's because when I looked at the two Katarinas and Gigas, Katarina's story was super short. It was like 3 paragraphs. But then Gigas, his story is like 4 or 5 paragraphs. So it kind of makes me wonder, did they put more effort and time into Gigas and then Katarina was just like tacked on at the end? That's what it looks like just from observing the length. But we're going to read it right now and figure out. So the first one says, Katarina, Tekken 7. Katarina Olives lost both of her parents at a young age. This is something that they repeat so many times over and over and over. Like, just off the top of my head, Leo, I think Beck Dusan, I think Bruce, I think Eddie, Leo, Steve, Leroy Smith. They need to come up with a different background, a different backstory, and spent several years at an orphanage before being adopted by a man she never met. The same thing, how many times have I read a character losing their parents and going to an orphanage? It has to be like 15 characters at this point. I'm not joking, it's literally like 15 characters who at some point in time was in an orphanage and lost their parents. Come on now. Initially, Katarina rebelled against him, using a whole manner of profane language, but the man's kindness and patience eventually wore her hard exterior down. Though her penchant for profane language remained, one day Katarina's adopted father vanished. As much as she wanted to find him, she lacked the money to do so. But then she learned of the King of the Iron Fist tournament. The savate techniques the man had taught her gave Katarina hopes that she could win and take the cash prize. The day of her first match arrived, and the arena was none other than the rooftop of G Corporation Millennium Tower. When Katarina first laid eyes on her opponent, all she saw was an enormous hulk of a monster. There was no way he could be human. Now, in her ending, the monster is Gigas. Now, if we think about the ending between Katarina and Gigas is a King of the Iron Fist tournament match. But all of a sudden, a Mishima or a G Corporation soldier shows up with a gun and starts shooting. This is why I criticize the tournament so much. This is supposed to be a live pay-per-view match. There's supposed to be referees and spectators, but then all of a sudden somebody shows up with a gun and starts shooting. It makes no sense. Now, let's talk about Gigas' story. Gigas, it says, a fierce arms race between the Mishima Zaibatsu and G Corporation has led the G Corporation to design a new military model to use in war, kind of like a super soldier, with one development team being led by Jane, who is behind the Jack series of military units, and another in G Corporation that recently had a new biotechnological weapon development breakthrough. This breakthrough has led to the creation of Gigas by enhancing the genes of strong fighters that turn them into fierce monsters. Determined to test out its new fighting capabilities and armed with a dislike to the Heihachi Mishima, Gigas enters the King of the Iron Fist tournament. It was no secret that G Corporation was locked in a power struggle with the Mishima Zaibatsu. However, within G Corporation itself, another battle was raging. The battle between the ultimate next-gen humanoid weapon. On one side was the development team behind Jack series led by Jane. On the other was the research team responsible for Gigas, a bio-enhanced superweapon with massive size and uncanny mobility. Gigas was hailed for his versatility in combat, and some saw him as more than capable of dislodging the Jack series from its position as G Corp's premier weapon. Both teams entered their weapons into the King of Iron Fist to decide once and for all which one was best. Now this part here is kind of interesting. One, you have Jack versus Gigas. In my opinion, I probably think Gigas would be the superior model eventually. The thing about Jack is a robot that they copy and paste. They, built this Jack robot in some secret laboratory and they could just turn out thousands upon thousands of robots. Yes, it might be expensive, but it's the same robot over and over and over. And they do upgrade it, right? From version 1 all the way to version 7. You have to imagine in Tekken 8, they're going to have version 8. So the fact that it is a robot, every single one is the same. That's also why they're able to turn these out so quickly. But the thing about the Jack robots, in King's Ending, he showed us that this robot can be defeated. Well, part of what Jack's game plan is to study your moves, and once it gets a pattern, then it will defeat you. And the way that King defeated Jack, he used Marduk's moves, he used Armor King moves, he used moves of other characters, other wrestlers to defeat him. Now, this is why I think Jack would eventually be defeated by Gigas, is because here you have a robot that they copy and paste. Every Jack is the same Jack, whereas Gigas is a super soldier. They took Gigas and they turned him into this monster. You have to imagine what would happen if they took Baek Dusan, if they took Wang, if they took Bruce, if they took some of these other characters that disappeared and stuff like that. What if they put Eddie through the same process and turned him into a Gigas monster? Then it would not be a copy and paste. You would have totally different genes, genetics, brain, mindset, fighting style. Everything would be different. So I think starting off, Gigas is weaker because there is some flaws in the development. We'll get to that in a second. But also I think eventually you will see more results from Gigas. The only thing about Gigas too, you would have to get, actual people, and not just normal people off the street, but people who are gifted, who are talented in martial arts already. And yes, the King of the Iron Fist tournament is a good place to start. You can pick up competitors left and right from there, right? Follow them home, Kazuya jumps them, and then, take them to the laboratory. You're Gigas number 2. You're Gigas number 3. Also, you do have to think about, now that Heihachi is dead, they say Gigas has been specified with a hatred for Heihachi. Is that no longer necessary? Does that sort of render Gigas useless because Heihachi's dead? Or will they now put a hatred for Jin in its place? These are just questions that come to mind, and also I think it is interesting comparing Gigas, a superhuman, versus Jack, a super robot, a super computer in a sense, right? Let's continue. Ironically, the first battle was staged on the rooftop of G Corporation's own Millennium Tower, possibly in retaliation for their efforts to affort Heihachi. Unmoved by the striking beauty of the skyscraper, Gigas awaited his victim. Now this part here is kind of smart on Heihachi's part. They created Gigas to be the rival to Jack, and then they entered Gigas into the tournament. Now, for the very first match of the tournament, Heihachi has to know that Katarina is Gigas' adoptive daughter. And what is the best way to stop Gigas before he even gets started in the tournament? Have him face off against his own adopted daughter. If we were to take either one of the two stories, the two endings to be canon. In Katarina's ending, Gigas gets a migraine because, he doesn't want to beat up his daughter, but the programming is telling him to. So that causes some trouble there. But also, if we were to take the other ending to be canon, what happens there?
Break yourself, fool!
He shows up there and once again distracts Gigas, and he gets Gigas to sacrifice his own life to protect his daughter. So either way you look at it, Heihachi's a genius. He sees a weapon put in the tournament solely to stop Jack, and he puts the daughter in the way as an obstacle, either to destruct the programming or to destroy Gigas, destroy the machine, right? The super soldier. Now, I think what would be really cool if they go the route of having Gigas jump off the building. Make that canon, but also shows what happened next. They can cut to the bottom of the building and they can have Gigas land, big impact, but he's completely unharmed. I feel like that would be so dope because I seen this in Main Man Sweet's video. He was like laughing because Gigas jumped off the building, and you have to wonder, why didn't he just push him?
I don't even want to break it down. That was 1 out of 10.
But instead you jump off and sacrifice yourself. So I would think, have him stick the landing at the bottom, and one, you have them separated, Katarina and Gigas, so you know they can do the whole, oh, was that my daughter, was that my dad, you know, that whole thing could play out. But also Gigas is still alive, and he's kind of like free from the control of G Corporation if they wanted to tack that on. But I just think that's very fascinating how Heihachi must have known of this secret weapon, because the first match is against his daughter. But Gigas is a cool concept, them trying to compete with the Jack robot. That's not something that I really knew before reading this, but you just have to wonder, will they fully commit to the idea? Because here's the thing, Gigas and Katarina, they're not a hit. You know, Claudio's a hit, Lucky Chloe is a hit, and that's pretty much it. The reason why I was saying that Katarina's story feels kind of tacked on is because she's just a adoptive daughter. Her only purpose at this point is to snap Gigas out of the mind control. It doesn't look like she was there for any other reason. Gigas, on the other hand, you can see his story is more thought out and it's more planned. In this story, for a very long time, we see the Jack robots thrown at the Mishima Zaibatsu and thrown at, you know, the Mishima clan. Jin will get swarmed by 20 Jack robots and they all will self-destruct. You have to wonder, they're tired of dealing with that. They're tired of these Jack robots being thrown at them all the time. And it's no wonder that G Corporation would finally start to try and make their equal, their rival to that. So I think there is something cool to explore there. Because what it kind of reminds me of is like the Cold War era between America and Russia, right? There wasn't really a war there, but they were like trying to make sure they had the best equipment just in case a war did happen. If you think about it, Heihachi hit Kazuya with a laser from a satellite in space, and Kazuya survived it. The Mishima Zaibatsu is not liking that. So you would think they would want to keep trying to up their game and up their ante so one day they can be able to destroy these Devil Gene creatures. But now that Heihachi is dead, you have to wonder if this project will be shut down. I don't know, I just think that's it. I don't want to go on for too much longer, but I did enjoy reading this. The story is really cool for Gigas. Katarina, on the other hand, I feel like it's another blank slate. We don't know anything about her besides the fact that she has a potty mouth and she's Gigas' adoptive daughter. That's literally all we know about the character. And it's like, how many characters do we have like that already? So that's it. That's all I really want to talk about. Thanks again for this comment. Leave a comment which character I should do next. But that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.